I'm Andrew.
And I'm Angus from Cracka Wines.
And today we are looking at Rosé, and particularly we're looking at Rosé in terms of the Rosé Revolution, Angus.
Indeed, the Rosé Revolution. November 30, people around the country, people around the world are going to get stuck into Australian Rosé, I guess, and say what they like, say what they don't like. And it's come from Steve Webber.
Yes, exactly right. And Steve is trying to push that whole dry, pale, and quite a savoury style of rosé. They're looking for a little bit more complexity, and they're trying to take rosé a little bit more seriously than it's traditionally been seen.
No more lolly water, Andrew.
No more lolly water, exactly right.
And which I think is a great thing because I think probably we've just been a bit simple about making rosé. It's been an afterthought. You've got people, I guess Gary Farr with Bannockburn Saunier, he put a bit of effort in, but a lot of people, it's just an afterthought. What am I going to do with my spare juice once I've blended it off? I'll make a rosé, I'll sell it to punters for way too much money.
Yeah, so way too much sugar in there too.
Exactly, and make it better, make the phenolics better by adding sugar. But, Steve has put together, 3 rosés. He sent out in his little tweet pack.
Yes, that's
and
right.
I think we should have a look at these, Andrew.
Yeah, exactly right. So we're actually starting off here with the Rococo Sparkling Pink, I suppose we're going to call it. That's Angus.
Indeed, very well. Actually, it's not really pink. It's more blush.
No. We'll call it like maybe a salmon colour. Even.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think there are a few better people I think to drive this rosé revolution than Steve and Leanne because really they're I guess one of the people at the forefront of kind of interesting, thoughtful styles of wine. There's Sauvignon Blanc, etc., etc. Andy, what do you think of the old Rococo?
Yeah, I like it. Well, I actually reckon this is almost like an orange sort of colour going on there. We're slightly bronzed, if anything else. And it smells very serious. We sort of looked at this just before, and we both agreed that this actually smells like a very serious style of sparkling.
Yeah, there's some strawberryness there, from the Pinot, but there's also savouriness. It's not just it's not just sweet fruit. There's,
definitely.
There's layers to it, and that's what makes the best rosé is they're not just making a pretty wine; they're making a wine that's a serious wine.
Yeah, definitely.
Andy, what do you think of Australian rosé generally?
Oh, look, I think that as we said before, that most Australian rosés are generally big, bold, fruity things. And whilst I certainly think there's a place for it, we were sort of saying how the Charlie Melton, the turkey flat sort of style, which certainly has a very good place. I think that there's certainly more to rosé than just simply something that is big, juicy and ripe.
And the climate is made for rosé. Australian climate.
Yeah, definitely.
We should all be necking this stuff 3 times a week.
Yeah, we definitely should.
And I think with the Rococo, I think you could easily do that because it's it's subtle, it's elegant, it's $22. So it's bloody well, actually $22 full retail. It's cheaper than that, really.
Yeah.
But it's just a lovely, elegant style, nice length. Trying hard, I think, to be a pretty serious style.
Yeah, definitely, and I think you can sort of taste that it is definitely made with an air of something that is going to be a much more sophisticated wine, and I think it actually really works out pretty well.
Nice work. So the next wine is the Estate, Bortoli Estate, about $25 these days.
Yes.
And just look at that beautiful colour.
Yes, you can see that there.
It's the kind of colour that we want to see. I guess the kind of colour I like to see in rosé. Not too much time on skins, not too much sweet fruit. Pulling back a bit on the fruit within rosé.
Yeah, definitely. This is a lot more of the lines of the Provence style of rosé, which is much about cream, like a creamy texture than anything else.
Yes. I think there can be no better example of what we should try and do than the South of France style. Sitting down on the Mediterranean, Bandol or Sanary-sur-Mer, and you can throw down those wines because
definitely.
They're just interesting wines, and that's what we should be going for. And this is like a nice savoury style, the Estate. Yarra Valley Estate wine. It's almost a bit herbal, I think, as well.
Yeah, definitely. You can I can sort of see that too, actually. And I think that's one of the ways that obviously they're trying to make a more of a textured and a little bit more of a serious style of rosé is they're doing things like they're using a little bit of barrel ferments, for example. We see the use of some different varieties, I suppose, than we normally see in Australian rosé styles. Like this is actually all Pinot. So again, looking for something that is a little bit more complex, a little bit more interesting.
We've been harping on, I guess, a bit about sweetness, and sometimes they're too sweet. The question about this wine: is it too dry?
Well, that is an interesting question, Angus, and it's something that we were sort of discussing. Maybe this is a little bit too dry. This is just really quite a serious wine. Maybe, maybe this isn't really what everyone loves. But for us, it's a sort of wine that personally I think that I could really appreciate and I really like drinking. I like the extra subtlety and complexity here. What do you think, Angus?
Look, I think rosé can do with a dab of sweetness. Like
Okay.
I think that skin time. There's a bit of phenolics there and just a dab of sweetness. Sometimes they can be too dry. Like I like the wine. I really like the fruit. But for me, the palate it's just a bit firm. I think rosé.
Okay.
I think there's a bit of fun. Okay, there's a serious side to it, but you want a bit of fun to it. And this wine, I'd like a bit more fun.
All right.
A bit more fun in the glass.
Well, I'm going to slightly disagree with you and say that I much prefer, maybe I'm not that fun or I've already got a lot of fun, but I actually really quite appreciate the slightly more serious intensity. Not to say that I am not a fan of the traditional rosé style. Look, Christmas time for me is always about a lovely bottle of Charles Melton Rosé. But at the same time, I do appreciate this sort of style of wine.
Okay. Well, the next one we have is a La Bohème. I've never seen it before.
No, but this is the first release, Angus.
The first release, $20. The Yarra Valley's very own opera diva, Dame Millie Melba, enchanted the world as Minnie in La Bohème. A very nice, tribute to Dame Millie Melba. Or is it a nice tribute? That's the question.
Okay. Now, what actually makes this wine interesting is that whilst it is made in some ways in a similar vein to the estate, this actually has a little bit of Pinot Gris included into the blend, Angus. Crazy, yes, exactly right. But crazy good, I think. Actually, it definitely produces some interesting sort of flavours on the palate.
I reckon this is going to be a love or hate style.
Yeah, okay.
I think, because I just think of rosé as being, I guess, quite light and airy on the palate. And whereas this, it smells like it's going to be pretty light and airy, but in your mouth, it's pretty full.
Yeah,
and pretty full and rich and creamy. And look, it's a funky style. It's a funky bottle. Steve and Leanne are funky guys.
Wow.
But I think, I like it. I think I like number 2 better.
Yes.
I think personally, it just doesn't feel like it's interesting and it's fascinating wine, but it doesn't feel like what I want from a rosé.
Okay, interesting.
From you, sir?
Look, I think I still slightly prefer this. I prefer this like number 2, the estate. But I also think that actually this is going to win more fans. I think that extra little bit of generosity, especially compared to that wine, is going to be the sort of, it's something more approachable. We're sort of talking about maybe that the estate wine is a little bit too serious. This is sort of something that's just a little bit more in between. And I can see that for people who are friends of mine who would actually prefer that style of wine, it has a little bit of extra cream and richness on the palate there, Angus.
We'll check out the sales figures.
Yes,
we'll ring them up and see what the sales figures are like. I can't go past that one.
Yeah.
I think there's some real lovely intensity of fruit to it and stuff like that.
Definitely.
It'd be really interesting to look at these wines. These are really eclectic for Australian rosé.
Very much so.
This is not your run of the mill Australian rosé, and great to see people pushing the boundaries in any direction.
Yeah, definitely.
Searching for what's going to work. The south of France where they do rosé with Carignan and Cinsault and these kind of things. It's hot climates that make rosé. Yarra is obviously not so hot, but you get them in Sancerre as well. Sancerre rosé is beautiful. Look, rosé can only get better in this country.
Oh, without question, Angus.
I think.
I reckon you're right there.
And Rosé Revolution, it's great to be a part of it. And to see these wines, I think.
Exactly right. And so we're looking forward to the tweet up and the celebration on November 30th.
That's right, November 30. Don't miss it.
Exactly right. And don't be just confined to these to Bortoli's either. There's a massive range of interesting style rosés that are coming onto the market there. We're just sort of talking about there's so many other brands that are sort of out there that we could be doing it. Just not from the Yarra Valley. There's actually quite a few from the Yarra Valley, like Dominic Bortoli.
That's right.
We're sort of talking about
That's
before.
right. Last thing. What's your best Australian rosé you've ever had?
Oh, jeez, that's
and nothing. I don't want Friday nights. I don't want stories about that. This is the wine. This is just the wine.
See, I don't know. That's a really tricky thing to say. I'd probably almost leaning into the fact that I'd say more of the sparkling rosés is where you're sort of going to find the absolute pinnacle of Australian rosé is going to be. I'd probably say that more of the Tasmanian styles of rosé is probably where you're going to find. Bay of Fires, the Jance rosé and all that sort of stuff. That's probably where you say Australia's best rosé.
But that's where the most effort's been.
Yes, of course, exactly right. And there's been that much of it's sort of modelled on a style that is well established in the traditional champagne style. As far as a still sort of style of Pinot, though, rosé. Look, I always quite like, as I said before, I always quite like the Charlie Melton, and it's always been a summer drink for me that I really quite enjoy. As far as this more of a pale style, I also quite like the Dominic Portet.
Yeah.
I think that it's something that manages to match that elegance and that sort of texture,
agree.
as well as being something that's got a little bit more sort of, a little bit more richness to it too.
Yeah,
so.
no, I agree. And for me, I think Dominic, actually, for the dry style, Dominic's probably my favourite as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But for the sparkling style, I think Mount William,
Yeah,
really
some of
small
those Macedon
Macedon
makers,
producers, where they're putting in a bit of, real time and effort. I think they can make some, they're small batch production, but they're just interesting styles, and there is potential. There's massive potential in rosé, and the world is, drinking more and more.
Definitely. So we can all look forward to celebrating more about rosé.
Rosé Revolution. Cheers.
Cheers.